Welcome to the channel, Prepared Wanderer in my studio, and this is a new endeavor for me. I'm doing a podcast style of video, and the whole background of this is that I want to start interviewing and presenting people that are in the survival prepper community, people that I admire. And my first guest, my guinea pig for this show is Jim Cobb. And if you're unfamiliar with Jim Cobb, he is an author and an editor, and editor-in-chief primarily of Prepper Survival Guide, Backwoods Survival Guide magazines, which you've probably seen in Walmart and other locations, and a prolific author. Lots of books that you can find on Amazon: Prepper's Home Defense, Prepper's Armed Defense, the Prepper's Communication Handbook, and I think probably one of his more popular ones, the Prepper Long-Term Survival Guide. And then Jim also publishes a Survival Weekly Dispatch, which is an e-newsletter, which I subscribe to, and I value quite a bit. A lot of great information. Jim, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you here. So for people who don't know who you are and don't know what you do, why don't you give us a kind of a brief background of who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, I am the editor-in-chief for Prepper Survival Guide and Backwoods Survival Guide magazines. Backwoods comes out 6 times a year. Prepper comes out 4 times a year. They're sold pretty much anywhere that carries magazines. We also offer subscriptions to both. Written, I think, almost a dozen books now. As you mentioned, Prepper's Long-Term Survival Guide is far and away my most popular one. We just did a revised second edition of that book last year, and I'm really thrilled with how that came out. I've been involved with preparedness nearly 40 years, if we're being honest. Since it was in grade school. It was something that I was interested in, something I was passionate about. Of course, when you're 9, 10 years old, prepping doesn't look the same as it does when you're in your 50s. The story I like to tell is when I grew up in the upper Midwest in Wisconsin, and I'd be sitting on the floor watching TV, and that scroll would come across the bottom of the screen, that tornado warning, severe weather. I would get up and I'd go gather all kinds of what I felt were disaster supplies and run them down to the basement. Being a young boy, those supplies consisted of blankets, pillows, stuffed animals, dog food, things like that. A flashlight that you had to smack a few times before it would actually work, things like that. To me, it was just common sense, and as I grew up during the Cold War, obviously, with the threat of nuclear annihilation at every turn, with movies like The Day After and The Road Warrior and things like that. Sprinkle in some of those popular men's adventure novels of the time, The Survivalist by Jerry Ahern, things like that. A brief foray into scouting, and you mix all that together, you get a young man who's highly interested in what we called survivalism back in the 80s. And survivalism obviously goes back further than that, but that's when I got involved, was in late 70s, early 80s. As I got older, my perspective and point of view kind of changed a little bit on the whole survival thing. I think a lot of us, particularly who grew up at that same time frame, with Red Dawn, we had this vision of, if something were to happen, we're going to grab our backpack and run off to the woods. And I got a little bit older, you get married, you start having kids, and you realize, living in a debris hut with a wife and 3 young boys doesn't really sound all that appealing. So I started expanding my horizon a little bit and looking at more family preparedness, more down to earth, more practical approaches to this whole thing. And along the way, I started, as I educated myself and, started implementing some of these things and learning about it, I started sharing what I knew. Predominantly back then, it was the kind of a precursor to social media was Yahoo groups. I was active in a few of those and made some connections with people. And I started sharing what I had learned and absorbing what I could from everybody else. And I'd always enjoyed writing. That was something I was always very passionate about. I never really took it seriously in terms of a profession. It was just something I enjoyed doing. And I had several people start pushing me, hey, you should start writing magazine articles. You should write a book about this kind of thing. And I kind of hemmed and hawed about it for a long time until finally my wife kicked me square in the butt more than once and said, give it a shot. Give it a real try and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least you can say you tried. So I started contributing sending in articles for magazines, sending out some pitches for books. Ulysses Press latched onto me, and I think my first book was in 2010, and here I am today, editor-in-chief for a couple of magazines, literally thousands of magazine articles under my belt, and I'm having the time of my life with this stuff.
Wow. That's, it's so cool when someone can actually live their passion and actually get to, make a living from it. That's, not so many people don't have that opportunity. So
No.
You're pretty blessed. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. I work from home, so my commute is awesome, but the downside is you never get to leave work. Mm-hmm. You're always at your workplace, and that's something that I've struggled with over the last several years. I quit my day job back in 2016, I think is when I gave my notice. 2016, and then I finally left in 2017. And over the last 7 years, I've really struggled with that division of, okay, you're done working for today, go off and do other things. And it's something I'm getting better with it. My wife is helping me with that. But I know it's been a strain in that sense where, it's nothing for me to put in 18 hours at the computer, editing, revising, writing, dealing with the business end of writing, things like that. But it's the price you pay to live your dream.
Yeah, right. So I want to talk a little bit about the source of information that this all comes from for you, because I think that's key for a lot of people. They want to know, where's Jim getting this information from? Who are some of your teachers? Where are you learning? Where have you learned from the past? What are the resources that you bring into this that inspire you to write these books and write these articles?
Well, going back a few decades, Ragnar Benson was an author I followed for a long time. I learned a lot through his books. Dr. Bruce Clayton wrote Life After Doomsday. That was my first real survival manual, so to speak. Back in the 80s in particular, most of the survival literature that was available was strictly wilderness survival. It was, we call it bushcraft today, or, woodsmanship, things like that. But it was just wilderness survival. It was going out and building a debris hut and living off the land and finding bugs to eat and things like that. But Life After Doomsday was the first book I read that went way beyond that and talked about, building a fallout shelter and stocking food and water and weapons and things like that. And that book was one of the ones that really kind of turned the corner for me. Since then, more recently, I look at people like Craig Caudill, John McCann, Creek Stewart, these guys, and other, I learn from your videos. I pick up things everywhere I can. I tell people I'm a perpetual student. I hate the term expert. An expert is somebody who knows more and more about less and less. Yep. And I never want to be that guy.
Yep.
I don't ever want to be the smartest guy in the room.
No.
I want to learn from everybody I can. And while I have people like Craig Caudill or Dana Benner is a fabulous resource for me. He's a homesteader out in New Hampshire. He just writes articles. He writes for my magazines. I learn a ton from him. Angeline Hawks down in Texas. She's another one of the writers for my magazines. Active homesteader. Love her stuff. And I tell people one of the reasons I love my job so much is because I get paid to learn these things. I get paid to have people write these articles that I get to learn from and then take that knowledge and incorporate it into my life and work on, my own gardening and food preservation and, all these different areas of preparedness. I love it. And I pick up little bits every day from everybody I can and just twist it, tweak it, make it work for me. There's no one size fits all solution for anything under the prepper umbrella. You have to take what works for you, discard the rest, and just keep revamping your own plans.
Yeah. I see that a lot. I know you and I both are on Facebook and Facebook groups, and I think we probably both see that a lot, that the people are trying to do things under a very strict definition or umbrella of terminology or definition or how other people are doing it. And then when someone presents a different idea, a thinking out of the box, they completely kind of crap all over it because they don't understand that you have, like you said, you have to adapt. Like that old line from that Clint Eastwood movie, you adapt, improvise, and overcome, right? All situations you have to do that. You have to adapt things to your situation, to your family, to your household, to your level of training. And so many people don't get that. And it's it's frustrating sometimes talking to those people because you're trying to say, hey, listen, there's different ways of looking at it. But that's what's, I think, so great about you and a lot of the other people in this community is that there's so many different ideas. And if you take the time to actually open your mind and study them and look at them, you can learn a lot. And I really I love what you said about, not being the expert. And that's my philosophy as well. I think it's a great way to be. And I know too, just from following you on Facebook, that you are also doing continuing education or classes. Like I think you just got done doing, was it a FEMA class or something? Yeah. I think a lot of people, like there's resources out there. You just have to find them.
Exactly. I took a class over the weekend. My wife and I went up, it's about a 2.5 hour drive north from where we live. The county emergency manager for Portage County, Wisconsin, was putting on this class called Disaster Readiness and Survival, I believe. It's a joint class offered by FEMA and Texas A&M University. They're offering this class all over the country. There's sessions all over the place. It was 12 hours. It was outstanding information. About 8 hours, I'd say 6 to 8 hours of it was on disaster preparedness and responding to disasters, and then the remainder was on search and rescue techniques. Not anything real heavy duty, but how to quickly determine whether a damaged home is safe to enter, how to find people, how to call out for them, how to use levers and other resources to free people who might be trapped, things like that. And the class is free, absolutely free. FEMA has a number of what they call independent study classes online where you can go and you can learn how disaster management really works and all these different resources they have available, and they're all free. All they cost you is the time to go through them. And having gone through several of these independent study courses, I can tell you it takes a little while. It's a commitment. It's not something you're just going to do in a couple hours. You're going to be sitting there for a while absorbing that information. The Texas A&M University, they offer a number of classes in addition to this disaster survival one, some of them online, some of them in person. And again, the cost is free. It's an outstanding resource.
Yeah, there's a lot of courses like that. I went through a lot of that stuff when I was in search and rescue. CERT is a program that a lot of people
Yep.
don't know about, Civilian Emergency Response Team. That's a free training, and you can actually join a team and help out that way. Weather spotter training is usually available in all your counties. That's a great training. That's usually a one-night class. The EMS courses through FEMA are excellent, and you can learn about different levels of communication, documentation, how agencies work with each other. And, you don't have to do this stuff, but having that knowledge can certainly come into play and help if something happens in the future. Because now you know how government agencies work or don't work, and what you need to do in case something happens. So, yeah, the information's out there. You just got to find it.
A couple of weeks ago, I spoke at the Wisconsin Emergency Management Conference, where they brought in all of the state, the county, and local level emergency management people. It's their annual training conference. And I was very fortunate to be asked to speak at it for a breakout session on what I call ground level preparedness. The idea being, I want to take emergency management and prepping and bring them together. And I talked to these emergency managers for an hour or so about all kinds of different ways that they can connect with people in their community who want to learn about disaster readiness, how to be better prepared, things like that, all the different resources that they have available, that many of them are free. And there were about 60 people in attendance there. Every single one of them was nodding their head and agreeing with a lot of the things I was saying. I had a number of people come up to me after the class telling me how much they appreciate that information and how excited they are about getting out into their communities and sharing preparedness information. Now, this is very kind of a new thing. If you go back a few years, emergency management was very focused on just like the community level at minimum, at the lowest. They weren't looking at the individual. They were just looking at, okay, how do we help the town? How do we help the city? How do we help the county? And a lot of them are starting to come around to the idea that, if you have a community, that community is comprised of individuals and families. That's where this starts. Not at the town level, but at the home level. And let's try to get these people on board and share this knowledge with them. Everybody that you don't have to help frees you up for the people you do need to help.
Correct. Yeah. That's interesting because I know a lot of people this day and age have a growing fear of the government and a mistrust, and it's warranted. But I know some of these EMS directors. I've worked with them. I know a lot of these government officials work with them, and they're people just like us. They have families. They care about their community. They care about the people that they're in charge of and that they're trying to help, and they're doing the best that they can. So it's sometimes I think people need to take a step back and remember that and think about that, and working with those people in advance and getting to know them and training with them and taking classes will just help in the future, because they're here to help us during a disaster and to get us to recover so we can get back to a normal life, and that's what they want. So having everybody at the ground level, the grassroots level, the home, the family, being prepared, that just benefits them, like you said. So that's good. That's good information. So what is on the horizon for Jim Cobb? What do you have in the pipeline?
Well, a few different things. Number one, like I said, myself and one of the emergency managers I know, we're partnering on some ideas to incorporate, like I said, taking emergency management and bringing preparedness to the forefront and sharing that with communities. We're talking about doing some classes and some other events. I do have an appearance scheduled at the Wisconsin Prepper Expo, which is in July. I'm teaching 2 classes there. I think one is on financial preparedness, and then the other one is on prepping with children. I don't have the dates in front of me. If you just Google Wisconsin Prepper Expo, there literally is only one. Continuing to do the magazines. I'm toying with ideas for a couple of different books. The problem with book length work today is, what can I say that's new? What can I say that's different? How can I share information in a unique way? After doing almost 12 books and doing all these magazine articles, that could be kind of a struggle sometimes. I mean, how many different ways can you describe how to make a fire, how to use a water filter, things like that? I do have some ideas, but they're not fleshed out yet. I keep threatening to do fiction. It's something I want to do. People don't realize, at least for me, writing fiction and writing nonfiction, they use 2 different, we'll just say, muscle groups of your brain. And the fiction muscle group isn't there yet. It'll get there, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm looking at some other projects as well. I'd love to start doing more video, sort of like what you're doing, but different topics.
Sure.
I'll get there. There's only so many hours in the day. And like I said, I'm actually trying to pull back a little bit on how many hours I spend working. So we'll see what shakes out for the year.
Nice. That's great. Sounds like some good stuff coming up. I like the fact that you're doing some in-person teaching. I think that's very cool. That's something I'm starting to do a little bit more of too. And people really, it seems like there's a lot of that stuff happening nowadays. There are so many of these expos and bushcraft meets, and they're exploding everywhere, and people are hungry for this information. Are you seeing that too?
Absolutely. One of the things that I did very late last year, I created a group on Facebook for my county, for emergency preparedness. And I started promoting that a little bit just locally. And I've got almost 70, I think a little bit over 70 people in that group now, who are all clamoring for information about emergency preparedness and homesteading and self-reliance and all this kind of thing. And what I've started doing is coordinating with instructors in the area who can provide education to our group. We have an 8-hour first aid, CPR, AED, stop the bleed class coming up in May. We're doing a meet and greet at the end of next month, the end of April, just to kind of get FaceTime with everybody, whoever wants to show up. We don't have anything scheduled training wise. It's more just a social gathering. But we're going to do first aid. I'm looking at bringing in ham radio instructors to get people licensed, looking at coordinating with our county extension office to bring in people to teach food preservation and budgeting and things like that. I'm not teaching this stuff. I'm bringing people in because a lot of this is stuff I want to learn or I want to brush up on. The goal of this group has never been to point attention at me. It's been, I want to bring all these local, like-minded people together so we can all learn together. And so far, we're just starting out, but everybody seems excited about it.
That's amazing. That's a great idea. I love it. And there's a group that here in Ohio that I belong to on Facebook group, and they're trying to do a similar thing. Gentleman who runs that, but I think there's been some difficulty getting people coordinated and interested and stuff like that. But that's such a fantastic idea to do that at the local level, to bring all those resources, make them available to people, because people don't know where to find this stuff.
Exactly. And, for example, with the first aid, it took some digging on my part to find an instructor who was qualified to do it, who was willing to do it at a reasonable price. I mean, I contacted one organization that's fairly well known, and they wanted to charge me well over $100 a person, plus provide the venue and all this other stuff. And these people want that information, they want that training, but they don't necessarily have $150
No.
to drop. I was able to find an instructor, somebody who I've actually known for years, who was willing to do it at a very reasonable price. And I coordinated with a local health business that had a small gym, and they're willing to donate the space for the day as long as the owner can get the training himself. So it's a win-win.
Well, and I think that's why YouTube is such a popular avenue right now. It's amazing
Absolutely.
how many people will watch a video on a certain topic. It blows my mind sometimes, the numbers of it's incredible, because people they want, like you said, they don't have the money. Our economy is not great, and people are struggling. They're buying their groceries with credit cards, which is just ridiculous. And so, now you're asking them to pay for training and supplies and all this other stuff. It's difficult. So yeah, that's a great idea, bringing that stuff together for people. It's a great resource. I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to pick your brain on some different topics and ideas that keep coming up in the prepper community. They're always hotly contested, and I want to get different people's perspectives on it. So the first one that I wanted to discuss is the classic bug in or bug out. We hear this all the time. If I do a video on bugging out, I'm immediately jumped on that, I'm not bugging out, I'm going to bug in. And then other people are like, well, I have to bug out because I have no place, my home's not secure, or I live in an apartment or whatever. So I'm kind of curious what your take on all that is, since you've, written so many of these books.
My approach has always been to try to bug in, shelter in place, until or unless home is no longer a safe environment, whether that's due to damage or outside influences, whatever the case is. I try to stress sheltering in place as your primary option, because let's face it, that's where our stuff is. That's where odds are we're most comfortable. We're familiar with not just our home, but the area around our home. At least in theory, your neighbors, if nothing else, by face, if not inviting them over for barbecues. That said, there are certainly going to be instances where bugging out, evacuation, is going to be your best option, such as an encroaching wildfire or a train derailment or civil unrest, whatever the case is. Like we said earlier, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. There's not going to be an answer that's going to work for everybody. And I think, honestly, that's where some people in the prepper community, that's where they struggle, because they don't want to make that decision. They want somebody to make that decision for them. They want somebody to tell them, you're just going to bug out, or you're just going to bug in. The situation's fluid. You have to make decisions. We talked about this at that class that I attended over the weekend, where you have to be willing to make that decision again and again and again and again throughout the duration of the event. You might say, okay, I'm bugging in, I'm sheltering in place. 2 hours later, something can happen that will still force you from your home. You need to be willing to be informed. You need to strive for information and make decisions based on that information, not based on your gut, not based on what you want, but what the information dictates. By definition, you can only make an informed decision if you have information. If you have no information, you can't make an informed decision. So that's where we talk about, making sure you have communication resources, radios, things like that can help you determine what's happening around you and what your decision needs to be at a moment's notice.
Yeah, be flexible too, right? That's the key, being very flexible.
Yep.
I like that, being fluid. That's a great way of putting it. You have to, there's decisions that have to be made, and you need to be open or prepared for different scenarios to make those decisions. So it's you can't just go by what one guy says and that's the way it's going to be. I really fear the people who are so locked into a philosophy that it's going to kill them. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yep.
you got to be mobile. You have to be prepared and have different scenarios prepared in your mind. You have to have a variety of items ready to go and staged in different ways. That's
Mm-hmm.
something I always talk about. You need to have your go bag or your backpack ready to go to leave the house in case there is that wildfire or flood.
Yep.
But also you need to have a well-stocked pantry and other supplies ready in case you are going to be staying at home for a duration where you don't have
Mm-hmm.
power, you don't have support. So super important. So we're at the 30-minute mark,
Yep.
and I want to do one last question, and then we'll wrap this up and let you go. So this is one of my favorite topics. And actually, I think we just talked about this today on Facebook, and it is the gray man scenario.
Sure.
A tactical backpack will get you killed or robbed. Camouflage will get you killed or robbed. You're going to stand out. What's your philosophy on that?
I look at it like this. In the event, if we've reached a point after some sort of event where people are looting passersby, it's not going to matter if your backpack is from 511 or from the Disney store. It will be assumed that you are carrying something of value in that backpack and they will want to take it from you. A lot of people get really, really hung up on this whole gray man concept. And I'm not saying the gray man ideal is unwarranted, but by the same token, if you're bugging out, it's major disaster, you've got to go. You want your pack to be something that's durable, something that's comfortable, and something that's going to actually carry everything that you want to put into it. I don't care what that pack looks like. That's a secondary consideration to everything else. If need be, if you're really hung up on this, you can buy pack covers that will conceal all of the molly webbing and whatever you have on it, any patches and all that. At the end of the day, what you want is gear that works. And it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter as much what it looks like, as long as it does what it's supposed to do. It's really that simple. People like to complicate this, and I really don't understand why.
Yeah, I don't either. It's weird. It's funny because I always tell people, I said, well, go to an airport
Mm-hmm.
and sit down in an airport lounge, and I travel quite a bit, and document what you see for bags.
Yep.
And you will see absolutely everything under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Military surplus, camouflage, molly webbing, tactical, hunting packs, and right down to the Disney packs like you're talking about. You will see everything and in anything, and the people carrying them will surprise you. Be like,
Yep.
why is that guy carrying that bag? I don't get it. He doesn't look like he's military, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter because we the supply of goods in this country is amazing. Everybody has access to everything. You can go to Walmart and buy a tactical looking bag.
Yep.
It's not uncommon. I see them all the time in the city. Even homeless people are carrying military surplus and stuff. So it's not uncommon. And I don't understand either why people have such a hang up on that concept.
Yeah.
But, of course, like you said, you don't want to stand out and make yourself a beacon. But in the same token, you need to pick good gear that's going to work for you and in your environment.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Jim. I would love to talk to you more. It's been fantastic. You are a wealth of information. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on with me and trying this experiment. And hopefully maybe we can get together and talk again. Is there any things that you want to plug right away, like where people can go to find out more information about you?
Well, the easiest place to find me is on Facebook because I seem to be there a lot more than I really should be. Just search my name and you'll find me.
Yeah.
I do have a website called realworldprepping.com. It's kind of in flux right now. We're trying to redesign the site so it doesn't look as good as it should, but I've been throwing stuff up on there. I'm active on Patreon. You can find me there, Real World Prepping with Jim Cobb. You can subscribe to my feed there. My magazines, Prepper Survival Guide and Backwoods Survival Guide, are sold literally everywhere that sells magazines: Walmart, Walgreens, Tractor Supply, Barnes & Noble.
Yep.
You can find all my books on Amazon. Substack is where I have my newsletter. You can search for me on there. And I think you have a link to my newsletter on yours and vice versa.
Yes, I do. And I will put links to all this stuff in the description for this video below.
Excellent.
So people can check it out. And I will load up my Amazon store with your books so people can look at those. They're all reasonably priced. You can get a pretty decent library pretty quickly.
Yep.
And they're all really cool books. So, Jim, thank you so much. So nice talking to you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was great seeing you finally. We've been talking for about a year now, and it's good to finally meet you in person, kind of, and chat. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Definitely.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. And please like, subscribe, and share. Check out the affiliate links down below. Check out Jim's links to his stuff. Give him a follow, find out his information, seek it out. He has a wealth of information to share with you. And as always, thank you for watching Prepared Wander, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Jim.